This video is brought to you by MoviePalette.com and enter ROOM15 for 15% off of your palette. Hey horror fans, welcome back to Room 237, back with another review. And this is actually for a new film. This came out November 18th, so about 2 weeks ago. And this is something that we meant to go see opening weekend, but the last 2 weekends we've had something going on. So we finally saw it this weekend. But before I get to that, if I look or sound worse than normal, I think whatever I had a few weeks ago is actually starting to come back. So bear with me on this one. But this was a film that I don't remember what film we went to go see where I saw the trailer, but every subsequent film we went to go see, we saw a trailer for it. And we both thought it looked really good, so we went to go see it, and it was really good. It was a very fun experience. Kind of felt like a lesser A24 film, which I mean that as a compliment. I've seen people debate on whether it's a horror film or it's a comedy, or if it's, like a black comedy but with horror. It's a black comedy horror film is what it is. And it's the new 2022 film, The Menu, which I wasn't quite sure what to think when I first saw the trailer. Obviously, it had some sort of Agatha Christie look to it, which it does have, and that's one thing that really attracted me to it. I love Agatha Christie stories where a group of strangers in one room, all with this extreme circumstance going on, with this maniacal sort of Gordon Ramsay-esque character played by Ralph Fiennes. Ralph Fiennes, one of my favorite actors. Everything I've seen him in, he's fantastic, especially a villainous role. In fact, one of my favorite performances in a film is him as Emma Gert in Schindler's List. We also have Anya Taylor-Joy, who I've seen her in a few things, and she's quickly becoming a really good young actress where if I see her in a trailer, I think, okay, she's going to help elevate this film. Ever since she was in The Witch, which is still my favorite horror film of the 2010s. Also, Nicholas Hoult, who I know has been in a lot of things. I remember him from Warm Bodies, which I actually do like. Hong Chow, Janet McTeer, Reard Birney, Judith Light, and John Leguizamo. Of course, John Leguizamo I've always been a fan of. Good movie or bad, he's always really good in it. Whether it's a comedy, whether it's a more psychological drama like Summer of Sam, or whether he's Sid the Sloth, I've always liked John Leguizamo. And yes, I know he's in that new movie, Violent Night. Maybe I'll see that, I don't know. But he had a really good role in this. It was directed by Mark Mylod, and I don't think I've seen anything he was in. Ollie G into House, The Big White, What's Your Number, and this. TV shows, like he worked on Shameless, Entourage, Once Upon a Time, 6 episodes of Game of Thrones, so done a lot of TV. It was written by Seth Reese and Will Tracy. The producers kind of let me know this was going to be a good movie too. It was produced by Adam McKay, who does do good comedies, but he does do good dramas as well. I really liked The Big Short, so he produced this. He also produced it with Will Ferrell, which I did not know until the end credits, so I thought that was kind of funny. Peter Deming did the cinematography, and Colin Stetson did the score, which he's been in. He's been a collaborator for bands like Arcade Fire, Bon Iver, Bell Orchestra, XI. Plays a lot of different instruments. Now, as far as score, he's also done Hereditary, Color Out of Space, the 2022 Chainsaw Massacre. So he has done some good scores, and this one is no exception. It has this ominous tone to it, this very dark, foreboding sound that I really enjoyed. This was put up by Searchlight Pictures, which I can't think of any on top of my head, but I know every time I see the Searchlight logo, uh, films I have seen by Searchlight, I've always enjoyed. And the the dark comedy of this film, this is kind of a satire. It's a satire mainly of sort of pretentious, high class, sophisticated uh, food or restaurant culture. But the the things that satires you can kind of plug into any profession, any sort of artistic or creative profession, or a profession that deals with serving the public in some way, serving the consumer in some way, which is you basically have this group of people, 12 people, who are going out to this island. Oh, and where this is a new film, this is going to have heavy, heavy spoilers, but I will give a warning before the spoilers. Um, there's this island with this restaurant called Hawthorne, which has this very prestigious uh, chef. I can't even remember his name. The character of Ray Fiennes, Julian Slowik. He's a celebrity chef, highly revered. He's basically like a Gordon Ramsay, essentially. But he lives on this small island with his crew, his staff, where all the food they make comes from the ocean, the land, the farm that they have on the island. It's all harvested and cultivated on the island. Only 12 people are allowed in the restaurant at a time, so it's incredibly hard to get a reservation to this place. I think they say at one point it's like a $1,250 a table type of restaurant. So we follow all these people, these 12 people that go there. And some of them are part of this culture. Like you have this one elderly couple who frequent the restaurant or frequent it as often as they can. It's said later on they've been there like 11 times. There's this other woman who's like this pretentious a restaurant critic, and either her husband or her publisher. You have our leads, Nicholas Hoult and Anya Taylor-Joy, who play Tyler and Margot. And Tyler's sort of like this fanboy. He knows everything about chefs. He knows everything about food, about tasting and palate, and what you're supposed to look for in each dish. He knows all the buzzwords. He knows what to look for. He knows what to say. He's sort of prodigal on the consumer side of it. And Anya Taylor-Joy's character of Margot, she's kind of the audience's surrogate, avatar, plug, whatever you want to call it. We're seeing the film sort of through her eyes. She's not part of this culture. We get the idea that she's from this small town in Nebraska. She's not part of this culture. Excuse me. So this is all new to her, as it would be to most of us. Then you have some other people, like there's these three bro-y douchebags who are kind of the underlings of the investor of the restaurant. John Leguizamo and his assistant, he's kind of a washed-up, famous actor who still thinks he's as famous as he was, but he's not. Is that everyone? I think that's everyone. But then, of the entire staff of the island, the one we see the most is Elsa, who's like the head, a maitre d'. She's played by Hong Chow. She's very creepy in her performance. Some of her lines, delivery, demeanor is very sort of ominous, cryptic, creepy, eerie. She really lets us know that there's something weird going on this island. They all get there, they get the tour of the island. And really, where the satire lies is Ray Fiennes has sort of climbed the mountain of celebrity chefdom to the point of being the at the highest level, like the at least peak echelon of what he can be. He can't reach any higher. His clientele is the highest elite that there is. And it's gotten to the point where no one really cares about the food anymore. And it's more about the experience. It's more about the experience of the restaurant or seeing what the dishes are or how it's presented. It's more about the experience of the night out rather than the quality of the food or the taste of the food or the dishes that are come up with and how good they are. That no one really cares about that anymore. To the point where Ray Fiennes is just he's lost his passion. He's very prodigal or kind of treated godlike for his stature in this field. But he's lost his passion. He doesn't feel anything for it anymore. The joy's been sucked out of it, which I'm sure happens. I mean, the better you get at something and the more people expect out of you and the better you have to get, it kind of can suck the life right out of a passion. And so that's what leads him to this one night with this new menu, which, as you can tell in the trailer, will lead to the death of everyone. And everyone is now involved in the menu. Not like cannibalism, I will say it doesn't go that far, but, like it shows in the trailer, like one of the courses is like these tortillas where the wraps have like pictures of the patrons in their everyday life, or it's built around certain things involving people in the room up until the final course, which I think is a 7-course meal because we see the 6 courses and then the dessert, and I think traditionally a fancy meal is 7 courses. Until eventually it leads to the death of everyone. So, and he's going to call it his masterpiece, his masterpiece menu. To the point, it has this very cynical tone to it. It's this very jabby feel, like kind of taking a stab at very high class dining or sort of high class lifestyle. More so the dining portion of that. That was like, okay, you would care about the experience so much rather than the food, and I've lost my joy for all this. So I'm just gonna create the most elaborate menu possible that you're all involved in, and it's gonna involve the death of all of us. That's basically the movie. Now the humor I did enjoy. It's very dry. A lot of the more overt laughs, like the bigger jokes, are in the trailer. Like the whole thing when, it shows the chef bringing out a birthday cake and the staff is singing happy birthday. The guy says, did you tell him it was my birthday? The other guy says, it seemed funnier 3 hours ago. So like that, or when they're all outside, the guy's saying something and then the woman interrupts him, like, we're all gonna die tonight. He said, yes, we're all gonna die. Or when Ray Fiennes says, the men will run and then the staff will try to catch you. 45-second head start, one guy runs away, dead silence, and he's like, starting now. Like, a lot of the bigger laughs are actually in the trailer. It is more like a subtle, more dry, cynical type of sense of humor that I really appreciated. Even to the point where with each dish, it's just like this shot of the food. It'll have the title of the dish and then like all the ingredients. And with each course, it gets more and more cynical as it goes on. Up until like the later ones, which I'll share. And then towards the end, we kind of find out why, each one of these people have been selected to, like, of all the reservations that have been put in, why Ray Fiennes chose all these people and why he made them part of the menu and why he wants them to die with him with the menu. And of course, at first they kind of think it's theater. They think it's all part of this sort of performance art along with the food. But then they start to realize that no, this is real, and then the whole Agatha Christie angle starts to come into it. And I thought I was constantly wondering where it was going. Obviously, we knew, okay, it's going to lead to the death of everyone somehow, but I was curious as to how or why it was like this. Like, is Ray Fiennes just crazy? Where exactly is it going? Which a movie like this should keep you guessing. There weren't really any times the laughs didn't get me, other than the jokes I just mentioned, and that could just be because where it has this very dry, cynical tone throughout, and those jokes seem over the top by comparison, or just because I've seen the trailer 4 or 5 times going to the movies already, that maybe I just didn't find it funny anymore, even with context. But I still thought this was a very well shot film, very well acted by everybody. Everybody did a good job. I would say Ray Fiennes and Anya Taylor-Joy were the standouts. Again, I love Ray Fiennes and everything, but those two were the standout performances. But everybody did do a good job. The atmosphere of it, you really get the sense of, even when they get to the island, that it's this kind of, what's a good example? Something kind of like The Wicker Man or something like that. Like, you get to the island and you just know something's off, something's not right. This eerie, foreboding tone or feel. The atmosphere was very strong. The sense of isolation or the sense of nowhere to go. There's no way of getting help. You're pretty much stuck on this island or in this restaurant. I've always liked it. I wouldn't really call it a cult, but it kind of feels like a cult. How all of these staff members appear to be almost like robotic in how brainwashed, or they seem sort of robotically brainwashed into doing whatever the chef says. There's even one scene with a sous chef, which just goes to show just how dedicated these people are to this guy. But Ray Fiennes was awesome as always. I would say this is equally a horror movie and black comedy. The plot itself is definitely a horror movie plot. There is just an equal amount of black comedy lines and tone throughout. One doesn't offset the other. They're both pretty consistent. And I would say this might be considered an artsy film, which I was surprised, because all the reviews I've read or seen of this film, people really seem to like it. And these are the kind of people that don't typically like movies like A24, even though this kind of feels like an A24 film, both in look, pace. It is kind of a slow burn. The way it kind of treats it satire or allegory. This one's kind of an allegory, but it does fit very well with its chef, fine dining, fancy food type setting. But again, you can almost apply it to any kind of job like this, so it's kind of allegorical. That it does feel like an A24 film. I wouldn't say it's as artsy, but it's definitely in the same ballpark. And I've seen reviews from people that really like this film that I was surprised because they don't typically like A24 films. But of course, they're all debating on whether it's a comedy or a horror, not realizing that it can be both. But not sure what else to say without getting into spoilers because there are certain scenes that kind of made me think, okay, that was really good for this reason, or that's what I got out of it. So, um, if you're thinking about going to see it, definitely go see it. I don't really have any negatives of the film. I will say the one thing that makes the Ray Fiennes character work so well is that we don't know much about him. There is one scene involving uh, Taylor Joy finding a picture of him, which becomes a plot point later in the film, and that's really the only thing we get as far as backstory or anything about him. I know there are going to be people that will not like this movie because so little is explained about him. And I think that works. I think for a character like this that is so like, prestigious, that he has to be kind of enigmatic. He has to have some sort of mystery to him. If you I think if you break down and spoon feed every little fact about him, backstory, how he became a chef, how he became Hawthorne, or how he came to own Hawthorne, how he rose the ranks of chefdom, I think that takes away some of the prestige of the character. So I'm really glad they didn't do that. Hopefully they don't do a prequel, no matter how badly the internet bitches that we don't know anything about him. So I'm really glad that they went with that. But I do think that the build up was all very well done. It had a good payoff. I'm sure some people will disagree, say it was kind of probably expecting something bigger. There is a speech that Taylor Joy gives towards the end that really made me think about people like who don't like A24 films or more artsy films. Kind of made me think of them, and I was wondering if it was kind of a stab at movies like that. I mean, you can look at it as this type of a profession. I was thinking like maybe it's about films itself. Like the speech she's given can also deal with artsy intellectual product, which I'll get to that in spoilers. But yeah, uh, definitely go see it. I'm not sure how this would work with the packed house. I mean, it's been out for 2 weeks. You're probably not going to get a packed house. But when we went to go see it, there was one other couple in the theater. That was it. Now, to me, that's a perfect movie going experience. I don't like packed theaters. I like it with as little people as possible. So I had a really good theater experience. I really enjoyed the film. So with that, we'll get into spoilers. So one thing that kind of does make it feel like an Agatha Christie type film is that we, the audience, don't really know anything about these characters, and they don't really know anything about each other. Which again, we're sort of looking at it through Anya Taylor-Joy's eyes, her character. She's sort of our surrogate or avatar. But as bit by bit, as the film goes on, we're explained why Ray Fiennes chose all these people. For example, this one couple who frequent the Hawthorne, Ray Fiennes goes up to them and he says, you've come here 11 times. Name one dish that we've served you, and they can't name one dish. Because for them, it's the experience, it's not the food, it's not the taste, it's not the quality. Which, even like one of the first things Ray Fiennes says before they serve the first course is, enjoy but don't eat. Meaning, chew, savor, enjoy. Don't just eat it, enjoy it. Taste it, savor it. And he really takes pride in his dishes, in the ingredients, and how everything goes together. Almost to like a scientifically uh, objective dish, like designed to like uh, satisfy the palate almost. So he asked him, "Sir, name one dish in." I don't know if he says the last time or any of the 11 times that you've eaten here, and they can't name anything. So this enrages Ray Fiennes. At one point, the husband even gets his finger or a finger cut off. I don't remember why. John Leguizamo, he's chosen because Ray Fiennes says he had one day off on a Sunday, first day off in months, and he chose to watch this movie called Calling Dr. Sunshine, which was one of Leguizamo's films. And he said it was so awful, so terrible, that even just him seeing him reminds him of that movie. And that's enough to kill him. And Calling Dr. Sunshine shows up a few times. Like the dish with the tortilla wraps when everyone has pictures of themselves on it. His is a picture of that movie cover. The one critic, she has pictures of like her review of one of his restaurants, I think it was. Nicholas Hoult, there's pictures of him taking pictures of all the dishes, which he was told not to do. Who else was there? The three douchebags, they're there because the guy they work for is an investor of the restaurant. You do find out that Nicholas Hoult, he was supposed to come with this other woman, this ex-girlfriend, but they broke up. So he brought Taylor-Joy, he brought Margot, and it's revealed that she's a prostitute. And her name's not Margot, it's something else, and she's from Boston, or Massachusetts. And Ray Fiennes keeps singling her out and wanting to pull her aside and talk to her. Because he senses, you're not one of these people. You're not, you're not supposed to be here. Like, who are you? And she keeps saying, I'm Margot. Which she's not. And the reason why is because he senses the service, like the customer service nature in her. The serving food, serving Johns. He's able to sense that in her. So he keeps singling her out. Other people... I don't remember why some other people, but in any case, and that just showed just how committed some of these people are. Like the scene with the sous chef, they lay down this tarp and like some parsley or whatever, and the sous chef, Jeremy something, comes up and he just stands there. Ray Fiennes says how he created this next dish. He aspires to be like me. He wants to grow to be like me. He's good. He's pretty good. But he's not great. He will never be great. He will never be like me. So why even bother trying? There's only one thing left to do. So he shoots himself in front of everybody. And I think that's like the first sign they start to get where it's, okay, things are not right here. But some people still think it's performance art. During one of the dishes, they bring the investor that the three guys work for. Angel investor, where we see him outside with these angel wings and he's like lowered into the water and drowned. Which there was this one funny line where one of the workers for the investor, says something like, you evil something, he kept you open during COVID. He's like, yes, he did. However, he wanted me to make substitutes, which that pissed him off. And it does kind of take a stab at the sort of intellectual deconstruction of like a dish or a typical course in a meal. Like, I think it's the second or third course, which is typically bread. The dish is like a breadless bread entree, where you get the accoutrement, but not the bread itself. Because he goes into the speech, which in between each dish, he like very loudly, which the way the sound design is, it is kind of jarring every time he does it. And he talks about how bread's been around forever. It was always like the common man people, the poor man people. You all are not. You all are not the common man, so you don't get any bread. So they just get like the trimmings that usually go with bread. So it's kind of this intellectual deconstruction of a dish, like this sort of intellectually clever take on a dish. And it keeps going into this more performance art direction. But what really got me is, okay, we see that no one's allowed in Ray Fiennes' quarters. The the staff all live in sort of like this army type of dorm where all the beds are in the same room, but he gets his own cabin. No one's allowed in it. No one's allowed in his office. But Margot gets in somehow, and she finds this picture of young Ray Fiennes working at a burger joint. And he has this great big smile on his face where he's been very somber the whole film. So they're getting ready for the final course, which, yeah, there's the scenes where they do like the hide and seek, where they have the men run and then be sought after by, the staff. Um, and then after that, Nicholas Hoult is picked out because Ray Fiennes says, you were supposed to have another date, but you brought her instead. And we've been corresponding for 8 months, and you knew that the end game tonight was everyone dies. You knew that. He admits he did, which pisses Margot off. But Nicholas Hoult is singled out because Ray Fiennes knows that he is this extreme fanboy of food culture. As I said before, he knows what the palate likes, he knows what to taste for, what to look for, what goes in a good dish, just all the buzzwords, everything to look for. He's an encyclopedia with all that, and with all the passion. So, the chef offers him, a cook's coat, and then has him come up with a dish. But that's when we find out that even though he has all that knowledge, he doesn't know how to cook. So he creates this abomination of a dish, which Ray Fiennes is comedically saying things behind him as he's razzled trying to cut and cook. Like, a new dicing method that all of us were ignorant to. So he cooks it, and he apologizes for this abomination that he cooked. And when we get the still of it with the title and all the ingredients, it just says Tyler's bullshit, which I thought was funny. And this was kind of eerie. We just see him whisper something in Nicholas Hoult's ear, and Nicholas Hoult just kind of like cries, takes his cook's coat off, and stumbles. So then when Anya Taylor-Joy is trying to get to somewhere, she looks in a room and sees that he's hanged himself. So they're getting ready for the final course, and that's when Margot stands up and says, "Wait, I want to return my food." This kind of stuns the chef. He asks why, and she says, "Well, I didn't like anything that you served me." Like, the experience is great, but the main thing of the experience is to, you have to enjoy the food. Your customer needs to enjoy it. I did enjoy it. So he offers her, and this kind of perks his interest, and he asks her, like, "Well, what can I make you? What would you enjoy?" And she says, "A cheeseburger." And he says, "I think we can make a cheeseburger." And she says, no, just a classic cheeseburger. Not some, something, I think close to her exact words was like, not an intellectual deconstruction, allegorical bullshit, just a straightforward, classic cheeseburger. And that was when I kind of started to think, like, okay, is this taking a stab at artsy horror films too? Or artsy films. Because I've seen people really shit on art films because they're not entertaining. It's, but they seem to, like, some reviews I've seen, they think it's, oh, they're just trying to show off how smart they are or how crafty they are with the camera or their writing, and it's not entertaining. Like, just entertain us. Even though I think film is a visual art, so if you want to get super artsy, I really get into that. I think food's a little different, but I can see the connection. And so when it shows Ralph Fiennes making this cheeseburger, you see him making it, like, each ingredient, like the way he cooks the patties, he lays down the cheese, he adds the onions, he starts to smile, he starts to kind of get his joy back. He gives it to her, and then she takes a bite, you can tell she likes it, and she says, oh, my eyes are bigger than my stomach. Can I get this to go? Which I thought was kind of funny. And he is, like, so into it at this point that he's like, yes, absolutely. He tells her it costs $9.95. She lays down a $10 bill, gives her a to-go box, and he lets her go. She's able to leave. And so then everyone else, they're getting ready for the dessert. He says, you know, it's the most offensive thing to the palate, one of the most crudest things that you can make, the s'more. But everyone comes out and puts all this, like, fancy dressing all over the floor into these cool designs. Everyone gets, like, this marshmallow dress draped over them, a chocolate hat. All this stuff is flammable, and he just ignites the whole thing. And Anya Taylor-Joy is able to make it to a boat, which there was a scene earlier where she finds in his office a radio, calls for help. The Coast Guard comes in, makes it look like he's going to save everyone, but then he puts his gun to the candle and lights it, shows he's in on the show. She's able to leave on his boat, and she watches the explosion of the building from a distance, and then that's where the film ends. Also, I liked when it showed the chef's cheeseburger. It said, you know, just a well-made cheeseburger, which I thought was very funny. And then, you know, when everyone was burning and it showed the chocolate melting all over their face and everyone burning alive, it said s'mores. It said, like, chocolate, marshmallow, graham cracker, staff, patrons, restaurant as the ingredients. I thought that was funny. So, and I took it as the reason why he let her go was because she was able to give him his spark back. He, you know, making something as classic, simple, and traditional as a cheeseburger, it gave him his passion back. It gave him reason to enjoy what he's doing. He's not trying to make it super flashy, super fancy, super original or never seen before, or you know, of elevated taste or presentation. Just a classic cheeseburger, and that's what it took for him to, you know, enjoy what he's doing again. And then because of that, and because of the experience of the, you know, the transaction of the chef and the patron was more natural. You know, she said she enjoyed it, but, you know, can I take the rest to go because I like it. It's more of what he's been looking for as a chef. Gave him his spark back. That's why he let her go. Everyone else, it was guilty of what he saw as just, oh, they're just here for the performance, the presentation, the experience, not the food. They all still die. And the chef, including himself, also dies, you know, along with everyone else. And so that's the film. Again, I thought it was equal parts horror and black comedy. You know, the situation is very horror film, but the way it goes about it, and the writing and the satire is very clever, very dryly written and executed, which to me is funnier that way. So I thought the humor, the satire worked as much as the horror setting. I really liked the Agatha Christie uh, style of the setting, with all the strangers in a room and just more of the plot and the characters revealed as it goes on. The performances across the board were great, especially Ray Fiennes and Anya Taylor-Joy. And it's a slow burn, but it's a really good build up with a really good payoff, which still has very funny moments. And I thought this was a very good film. It did kind of feel like an A24 film, maybe a lesser one, but that's still a compliment. And I would be surprised if some people take that speech about, just give me an entertaining movie. Just give me something that's entertaining to watch. Like just a popcorn flick. Not some intellectual, allegorical deconstruction film that's supposed to make me think about aspects of life, like they would with A24, which I still love A24, and I'm glad that they are as artsy and allegorical as they are because I like that. And while I can see some of it is over the top, some people I think use the term artsy a little too loosely. Like if a movie's well shot, well written, well acted, they call it artsy, which that I never understood. But and the sort of allegory or a satire of just where you get so good at something that where the people you're doing it for is just the top echelon of that thing, that it can suck the joy out of it, and people will the people itself will drain the life out of it and make it not fun anymore. It will burn the passion right out of it. So I thought it had a good message, and I thought it handled it well. Yeah, I thought this was a very good movie. So if you stuck through the spoilers, definitely go out and see it. It's definitely worth the watch, especially in theaters. And that's 2022's The Menu. Thank you for watching.